The dark side is palpable this time round, and I've honestly been rather excited to get into this one, so fucking intro, let's go! We start this right as we left off, with Ezra in shock over Sibo's revelation that he knows where his parents are, but the lad explains he doesn't want to know as he feels Sibo failed his parents to begin with, and couldn't trust any of the information he had to offer anyway. The crew band together to try and evade the Empire, with Sibo given the edge, so they achieve getting away, but not before the Grand Inquisitor places a tracker on the Phantom. As the crew regroup, Ezra continues to be resistant to working with Sibo and continues to push the capture of the bridges being his fault, to which Kanan and Sabine step in and tell him that without Sibo they wouldn't have the valuable intel regarding the Empire's up-and-coming plans. And during the discussion, the house lights turn on and Sibo tells them about a tracker that can locate ships in hyperspace.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Which Chopper locates upon recovery, leading Kanan to decide that based on where the tracker is placed, both he and Ezra take the Phantom to the remnants of an Axis again to hopefully bait the Grand Inquisitor and allow the Spectres to flee with Sibo.
Alrighty then.
The crew are hesitant to go along with this, but agree anyway. Whilst they journey out, Kanan tells Ezra that he'll need to ready himself as his next lesson comes now once they arrive on an Axis. Meanwhile, the Grand Inquisitor prioritizes the Jedi over the rebels, hoping that if he can capture Kanan and Ezra, he can get the information they need whilst expunging the Jedi from history.
There are only 4 rules you need to remember. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan.
Once the duo arrive, Kanan tells Ezra to focus on the lesson from last episode in trying to recruit the Fernox to combat the Inquisitor's forces. However, when he's thrown into the fight, Ezra struggles to face his fears that are stopping him from connecting with the Fernox that can sense his hesitation and fear. And it's right as the creatures begin to attack that he lets it rip about his fear, and that's knowing the truth about his parents, and across the stars manages to project his voice to Sibo and forgives him. To which Sibo hears and apologizes once more, where back on an Axis, Ezra has tamed the Fernox. Back on the Ghost, however, Hera meets with the members of the rebellion to deliver Sibo, who thanks the group for their help, and as he's about to leave, tells Hera that he knows what has become of Ezra's parents. So Hera pushes for answers as we close on the book of Sibo.
TTFN, ta-ta for now.
While back on an Axis, the Empire arrives and begin to fan out until they find Kanan and Ezra sat among the Fernox meditating, where the battle begins and the Jedi send the Fernox out to tear the troopers apart, whilst TGI Fridays goes on to confront the duo. And as Kanan fails again to make a stance against the Inquisitor, he begins to berate Ezra for being a failed student, and tries to edge him towards the dark side, which succeeds, only to simultaneously backfire on him when Ezra embraces the darkness and calls upon the mother of all Fernox to take on the Inquisitor.
Beautiful.
And as he's busy with that, Ezra collapses from the energy loss and the pair make it out of there whilst destroying the Imperial ship to ensure they aren't followed.
See ya, chump.
And before they return to the Ghost, Kanan apologizes for not training Ezra enough to resist the temptation of the dark, and promises from here on out that his lessons are priority number 1. And we close on Ezra taking a moment to rest, whilst Sabine gifts Ezra a cleaned up holodisc that holds an image of him and his parents for his birthday. So that's it for our first multifaceted duology, and truth be told, the first part did little to excite me visually, but narratively it hit that sweet spot, whereas this one did a lot to emphasize the visuals Rebels is best known for to impress with, and highlights the weight behind Ezra's story as we push towards our young Jedi's beginnings as a fully fledged Padawan. There honestly isn't a huge amount to discuss from this one, except for the setup of next week's installment, following on from Kanan's promise, and the moment of Ezra's brief dabble in the dark side that feeds into his comfortable usage later on in Season 3, and how this serves to inform us of Kanan's deepest fear heading toward the finale. This one is fueled by rage and is representative of a user's inability to connect with the Force effectively unless they open themselves up to it, a lesson of which Kanan understands in theory, but when attempting to apply that physically, you can see in the animation details he too struggles with his own connection to the Force as much as Ezra, as again he was never taught much beyond his time with Master Balaba and Master Yoda in the temple through fear of being caught, so his knowledge would be greatly hindered, meaning that Ezra could only apply the practices he's taught based on weak information and couldn't easily be redirected due to Kanan's lack of awareness for more advanced teachings.
That's why you fail!
So it begs the question, would Ezra have ever learned and understood the idea behind the practice anyway, despite TGI Friday's involvement here? And my feeling is yes, as Ezra goes on to embrace his emotions to drive his attention in battle for years to come, and it fuels his connection to the Force centered around his attachment to others.
Attachments for men.
a lesson that maybe could have been offered to Anakin on occasion. A point of which as well was followed up on aggressively starting out Season 3, where following the events of Malachor, he uses a Sith holocron for information about destroying the Sith and how to manipulate the Force in more vicious ways, under the guise of protecting his family and friends, which Kanan doesn't take too kindly to, as it opens Ezra up to the dark side and will gradually consume him, but it also opens the door to Ezra's connection to something darker that they will find on Malachor as well. And it all stems from here in response to Kanan's defeat at the hands of TGI again, who then proceeds to antagonize Ezra even further and tries to persuade him to join the Sith. However, what TGI couldn't count on though was the raw, rancorous attitude of a young man on the verge of breaking down due to acknowledging the loss of his family.
I want my family back.
Okay.
Give me back my family.
Get off me!
And never being able to fully process that, having lived in denial for so long, and until now has avoided it like the plague, which many kids would do without the proper guidance, as responding to and processing something like grief tends to take shape from watching their parents or guardians respond to such a concept. As at a young age, children don't know how to interpret their feelings, so turn to their paternal figures for a frame of reference, and as Ezra hasn't had paternal or maternal influences in his life for almost 8 years, the back end of his formative years wouldn't have had a structure or reason, leading him to develop a dismissive attitude that flies directly in the face of Kanan's teachings, drawing Kanan to every conclusion possible out of desperation to prevent Ezra's shift as a Force wielder before agreeing to take him on as a student himself, though this pushes Kanan to overcome his own fear that he won't be the appropriate role model that he needs nor mentor for his teachings, which is an internal conflict that ties into next week's installment and a future installment in Season 2, seeing him take a lecture from Master Yoda and a temple guard, who question him about taking on an apprentice despite never graduating as a teacher, which will prove to be the course for Kanan going forward, as he's got everything going for him, and his desire for change and perseverance will shape Ezra into the determined young man he'll go on to become, and that will enable the young lad to do what needs to be done in the end. Anyway, before flying off on a tangent, my thoughts regarding this one are it's a considerable improvement over Part 1, with stunning visuals and lighting, especially with Ezra's switch to drag the Mother Furnock up from the trenches. The pacing was a little indulgent for the first 5 minutes, but after that it genuinely hooked me from minute to minute. TGI Fridays was menacing as always, and to return to Anaxis one last time as this broken battleground reflective of Ezra's mental state throughout this was a fantastic choice, and practical as well, given the Furnock's use in the final fight as almost the inner demons of Ezra being unleashed. The dialogue was informative, composition was phenomenal, as it usually is within Rebels, and as I said last week, the relationships between the crew truly start to shape themselves into something special beyond this point, becoming the not really anything crew squad family thing. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me for this week. I appreciate you stopping by. If you like what you see here, please hit the thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more like this, and until next time everyone, take care, and may the Force be with you.